I'm Darren with Sensenich Propeller, president of the airboat division of the company. Today we are going to discuss all of the blades that we offer in our J-Series airboat product line. This is our ground adjustable composites. All the blades are hollow and they all work in our V-Series hub systems. We will start off with the smallest blade in the bunch, our 70 JM series, and we're going to go all the way through to our 88-inch diameter JW, which is referenced as blade width. The way that we talk about the J-Series product line is there's two letters in the product after the diameter that they're available in. The props start at their diameter, and then there's trim options where you can reduce diameter. We are working towards doing some extended hub versions for some product that will allow us to even extend diameters with specific blade models that will allow you to really customize the overall footprint of the propeller in your guard. You can customize these things in a number of different ways, between the number of blades down to diameter and along with pitch. So this is kind of the best option across the board for any airboat that's out there operating or going to be built in the future. To start off with, we're going to kind of explain how the blade definitions work. We do get some interest on the different product names and what they stand for. Obviously, when you're looking at rotation of a propeller, a lot of people ask, what determines which blade you choose from a rotational standpoint? And we always refer to that as a left-hand or a right-hand propeller. Right-hand propellers are typically turning the opposite rotation of the engine. They're normally attached to a gearbox, and that gear-to-gear interaction reverses the rotation or changes the rotation of the engine. So you would need a right-hand propeller. The most common is left-hand in the industry, just because with the belt drives that are available, the belt follows the crankshaft rotation. The props turn counterclockwise when you're standing in the prop wash. And when we say prop wash, that means we're in the back of the boat. We got air in our face. We're looking at the propeller. All of your direct drive aircraft, except for the occasional right-hand rotation aircraft engine, there's some twin engine airplanes out there that use an opposite rotation engine as to what's normal in the aviation industry. Those will trickle into the airboat area every now and again, and we will see those, and we have options for those as well. It's not a big option, but there are a few that will help to get somebody on the water. So the second thing in the blade description is the diameter. We tend to describe the prop in its largest diameter configuration in the shortest hub option available. That means that anything that has 70, 72, 80, or 82, those are your biggest options in our standard hub systems. After that, you've obviously got the J in the model. So just like the first prop here, this is our L70 JM series. That stands for counterclockwise rotation, left-handed blade option, a 70-inch maximum diameter and a standard hub, and it's our first blade in our J-Series lineup. The second letter in the definition of these blades basically stands for how wide the blade is. We're either looking at a narrow blade width, which is something, say, under 9 inches. Then we go into our medium blade widths, and that's something typically under 12 inches. And then our wide blades, or what we call like the JW series, that's a product that's within, or say under 13 inches. That's mostly going to be all your 12-inch, 12 and 12.5-inch wide blades. The R, like the JR series, that's what we consider a really wide blade. That's going to be a prop that's going to be under 14 inches. And then the JX, which is the extra wide blade, is going to be that blade that's over that 13-inch maximum width. It comes in at 14 inches wide. As the props get bigger, whether that's in length or in width, there's going to be diameter changes that are going to affect maximum RPM rating of these propellers. All of the propellers have a very similar root system that goes into the hub are exactly the same. And those have ratings based off of the size and the laminate structure. A lot of people ask, why are there different ratings? A lot of that is because the shank size is a direct correlation to the strength properties of that shank. No different than the drive shaft in a car. If you build a really, really high horsepower application, you want a really good solid drive shaft. That's the same thing for the root end of these blades. We tend to kind of target for the highest stress loads, and we make that laminate structure standard. And then as we kind of come down or that changes, we'll modify the laminate structure to accommodate specific power ranges and RPM so that we don't over design, make the blades too heavy for the application, and make sure that everything is tailored perfect for the application that we're targeting. So initially we're going to start here with our 70JM series. This is mostly our two-bladed 4-cylinder application propeller. This is for use on anything under about 235 horse. It's available from 66 inch all the way up to 70 inch in a two-blade configuration. And that suits anything from, say, 150 horse, 140 horse, 0320, a higher compression, say a conversion engine, a Continental conversion engine that's maybe a PE90 that's had some cylinders put on it, all the way up to a very maxed out 0360, something with pistons, injection on it, you name it. This is kind of your good catch-all prop. This has good hump performance. It's got great snap. It actually even runs well in the water. It's got some speed to it. We've had a lot of guys with higher output engines that have ran 5-blade Sabres that have put this propeller on, and they've noticed that there's not too much difference in overall speed of the boat, but they do pick up a lot of push on the ground. This propeller comes in just over 10 inches wide, and it has a maximum operating rating of 3,000. A lot of guys kind of keep it into that 2,800 to 3,000 RPM range and really love this propeller. You can also utilize this up onto a 6-cylinder application, or even in some cases, some beefed up big block direct drive applications. We do have some guys that are using this in a 3-blade option on those engines. Whether you have a smaller deck over, a boat that maybe previously had a 4-cylinder and you retrofitted in a 6-cylinder and the guard wasn't really built big enough to handle a 72-inch propeller. Instead of buying something bigger and cutting it down, the guys that want more of an overall performing propeller where that's smooth, snappy, that'll push well, still has good speed, they'll run this in a 3-blade option. It works very, very well. It has very good thrust output. It's got very good speed. It's very smooth, very snappy. We do have some guys that are running this as a 3-blade as well on Cadillacs that are on some smaller stuff. They're turning really high RPMs. They love it as well just because of the smoothness. Everybody knows Cadillacs can be pretty rough on props, and a 3-blade tends to smooth them out really well. The next product in the lineup is the 72JN. Now this was specifically introduced to the market to replace our older H-Series. The H-Series was the first propeller we ever brought to the market back in the really, really late 90s. And that product ran very well all the way up into about mid-2010 era. Then it kind of tapered off as we introduced new products and found better things to put on boats. But it had a very, very big following. Originally, the H-Series was designed to be a competitor to the warp drive spectrum of the airboat industry, where you had a smooth, snappy, fun, fast, like hunt style prop that wouldn't stop pushing. That prop worked very well. We cut our roots on that propeller. We learned a lot of things. We made a lot of mistakes. We tried to right a bunch of wrongs there, and we learned a lot. And a lot of that we learned has been transitioned to make this product as good as we could possibly do. It's still available in that just over 8-inch wide maximum width area, 72 inches, available all the way from 66 to 72 inch. Snappy, smooth. This is for your 6-cylinders, your direct drives. We do offer this as a 2-blade option as well for 4-cylinders down around 66, 68, and 70 inch. This would be considered more of a like a river style boat. If you're operating in an area where you're doing more water running, frog gigging, you want a really slow idle, but you do want some good cruise and water performance, this will work really well on a 4-cylinder also. It just doesn't have the low end and grunt push as the 2-blade JM will, but this is definitely faster. So if you got that lighter weight, like sled that you're going to run in the glades a lot, you don't want to buy a 5-blade and spend that kind of money, but you do want something that's going to be snappy, that's going to have some speed to it. This on your 4-cylinder or your 6-cylinder is a really good option. Even if you're a flat bottom, composite hull, slick bottom guy, this does really well. Guys in Vero really love this prop. We have a dealer over there that will bolt these things on for you and let you test it. His name's John Thornton. He really, really loves this prop. He's sold many of them for us, and we appreciate that very much. Our next product is our JM series. This is the 72-inch. This is the kind of the big brother to the 70 JM. This is mostly used on 6-cylinder aircraft from 260 horse and under. Any 6-cylinder really. It can be a ground power unit. We've even had some of the stronger 4-cylinder guys run this prop cut down. There are guys that build some of these 4-cylinder 0360 engines that are making nearly 240 horsepower, and they have a heavier hunt boat, something they're going to put a lot of game in. They're going to have hunting stands in there. They're going to just put a lot of weight. They're running dogs, that kind of stuff. They're going to actually go into this propeller. We're going to cut it down to 70 or 68 inch, and that's going to be like a paddle style prop for a 4-cylinder hunt boat. This is kind of the version of the Q series. If you were a fan of that propeller back in the day, this prop just serves as kind of a step up from the 70. The main difference in these two is throttle response and kind of speed on the water. You know, if you've got that hunt style boat, but you want it to be peppy and fun and you want to go out and ride and have a good time, but still hunt it, this is your great prop. If it's more of a dedicated, I'm just going to go beat the woods, I'm going to load it with tree stands, and I'm going to go hunt, and I've got a really stout 4-cylinder, you can definitely get this 72 JM cut down. Works very, very well. Once we move into the bigger side of the blades here, we're going to start talking first about our 72 JW. Now the JW product line starts at 72 inch and it goes all the way out to 88. The reason that we stayed with the JW is because these are all blades that fall in the 12-inch diameter or 12-inch width area. The 72 JW can be reduced in diameter as well. You can trim it all the way down to 70-inch diameter. We have made the occasional 68-inch diameter props for some guys that have some special diameter restrictions. But you can get this propeller all the way from about 70 all the way to 88 and anything in between. Now, they're not designed to work on the same application or the same engine in those different diameters. It's just mostly based off of blade width. So the 72 JW is really going to be used on the engines that are built past that 260 horsepower range. It's 290 horse, 300 horse. It's over that. If you can build the baddest 6-cylinder out there and you want a really good paddle style prop that you want to use, say under 3,000 RPM, this is going to be a good prop for you. This prop was designed on high power engines that are going to keep their RPM ranges, say, closer to what the engine was designed for. Most of these 540s, they were originally designed to turn about 2,700 in the airplane. In the airboat side of the market, those RPMs do get pushed a little bit. But if you're trying to keep the longevity of the engine, you want to build a good, strong engine, but you don't want to turn it really hard. You want to keep your RPMs down in that 2,800, 2,650 range, and you really want to turn the engine into a workhorse. This is a very good budget option. You can even utilize the 76-inch version of this propeller. These are pretty much brothers here. This being just a longer version. For if you've got a very tall set of metalworks, you got a big guard, and you want to do the same thing, you want to build that really strong engine, you want to put a big diameter prop on it to get that really good low-end style grunt performance on the ground, diameter is always king. So you can run the bigger diameter JW, keep some pitch in it, load that motor down and make it into a workhorse. The second option to these, if you're in the market for a little bit higher end propeller and you do still want to keep your RPMs a little lower than normal, say into that 2700, 2650, anything under 2800 really, you can step back into the JM series and run that as a 3-blade. That is very, very popular for guys that want a smoother propeller, that want just a ton of low end push, that don't really care about how snappy the boat is. They just want to make sure when they point and go that they're going to get from A to B. The biggest difference between whether you run a 2-blade JW or a 3-blade JM is a couple of things: smoothness and water efficiency. The one thing that we do find between the 2 blades and the 3 blades is that the 3 blades have a higher headroom of efficiency as the boat is moving forward. So your 2 blades tend to kind of hit a wall. You'll hear people say this online a lot where, you know, they were running and they're at an RPM range and they give it more gas and the prop does nothing, the boat doesn't get any faster. That's not really a performance problem. That's just the characteristics of a 2-blade. 2 blades just kind of run out of steam at a certain point. They've transitioned any airflow and increased the velocity through to get what they can get out. And after that, they're kind of done. The 3 blades, as you feed them more air, the efficiencies go up, which gives them more headroom for better performance on the water. Same on the hill, but a lot of guys aren't going to really try to run 50 mile an hour across the ground. Some do, me included, but it's far and few between. Next, we're going to get into more of the automotive style blades with the reductions, starting with our 80 JW series propeller. Again, the JW series, 12-inch wide. This is our 2-to-1 style replacement propeller for older K-series blade models. This propeller is the only one in kind of the reduction drive family of blades that is only available in left-hand rotation. The only reason that we did that was mostly because early on, the 2-to-1 belt drive was way more common in the industry. In the early beginnings of gearbox and belt drive world, the gearboxes were tailored towards more of a performance boat. Guys that were building a higher performance engine, racing, that kind of stuff. They weren't going to really look towards having a blade like this. There are some other, setups out there, like a small block, 2-to-1, like 2-to-1 with a gearbox, or something like that, that would utilize this in a right-hand rotation option, but there's just so far and few between of those to make that blade in a right hand really doesn't give any purpose to the market. So we kept it left-handed. This is a great option for somebody with a 2-to-1 belt drive on a small block. If you've got a mildly powered big block, you can use this. And then this also serves as a very good prop for the aircraft geared engines. These are engines like GO480s, GS0540s, engines that came factory with a gearbox onto them. Those gear nose engines, what we call them, will follow the direction of the rotation of the engine in most cases. And this propeller is like a 3-blade option, works very well on those boats, especially if you've got more of a performance boat. You've built that engine up, you've put it on a lightweight hull. You're looking for a 3-blade that's going to give you a good range of performance, but still have some good top end. This prop is very, very well. It's highly overlooked in the market, just because there are some features and functions to other models that we have that better suit some of that stuff. But this is still available. We still build this. We send a lot of them to Louisiana because that's a really good high market for belt drive 2-to-1 applications. The next blade in our lineup is the 82 JR series. Again, this one's available both left and right hand just for gear or belt drive options. This is our highest selling blade model in the market today. It covers a lot of different engine and gear reduction applications. You can put this on a 2-to-1 as well. As long as you keep your RPMs in a safe range, you'll want to check the latest manuals and installation instructions on any of these props for our latest for RPM range operations, max RPM ratings, that kind of stuff. We're constantly updating that based off of service history, We're constantly retesting things with different things that we're doing with the shank laminate structure. So some of that stuff will update over time. So you want to obviously keep an eye on that. Make sure you've got the latest revision of things. Always check the website. But this JR series will accommodate anything from a 2-to-1 all the way up to a 288-to-1, as long as the RPM and the power range fall within the spectrum of what we're trying to achieve with this. When we get into the airboat side of the market that is automotive with gearbox, there are so many options of engines, camshafts, you name it, gear reduction ratios, that it gets really muddy. What we try to do is tell people that if you're on the lower power spectrum of the industry, you know, say you're under 500 horsepower and you're running any number of ratios, whether it's a 238 all the way up to a 268, this propeller in a 3-blade option will cover you across the board. We can tailor these props all the way from 78-inch all the way to 82-inch. There may be options to go all the way up to 86-inch here in the future with some projects the engineers are working on. But this will cover anything of what we call the mainstream market. This is your budget motor guys that are getting LSs, or they're getting a big block. They're not making a ton of changes to them. They don't want to really rev them out in the higher RPM range, so they're going to stay in a more moderate ratio of RPM. And you really would just tailor this as far as diameter to what the footprint of the boat is. You know, if you've got a more narrow hull, you don't want to set the engine really high, we can shorten these props up to 80, 79, 78. That would allow you to compensate for, say, a 7/6 bottom instead of an 8-foot bottom. It will cover a ton of different options. Now, when you look at this option as a 4-blade, 4 blades are geared more around higher output engines like your LT5s, your big blocks that are pushing into the 500 plus horsepower range, and you're on more of a, say, a fishing boat or a guide boat, 16-foot. You got walk boards, coolers, you're loaded with gear. You're going to have maybe something for bow fishing where you got all the lights out on front. You would utilize this prop in a 4-blade just to give you more of that robust push that you would need to get that weight moving and keep it up on the water once the boat's moving. The main difference between 3 and 4-blade options is typically speed on the water. And that's what we're going to talk about next in our JX. The differences between why you would do a 4-blade and a 3-blade, and that's going to be a pretty good conversation. But this is offered all the way up to a 5-blade. We've done 5-blade versions of a JR series on anything like 632s with 238s. The reason that some guys will run a 5-blade version of this is mostly for bragging rights. Everybody wants to be the coolest out there on the water, but it also suits a purpose of trying to absorb tons of torque. We do a lot of 5-blades that go out into Texas where they're looking for the most just raw pushing power that they can get. The guys that run these are typically guys that if there's a sunk boat somewhere, they're going to be the ones to pull up and hook a strap to it, and they're going to try to pull that thing off the bottom of the lake. They just make really, really good static thrust. They're great for just climbing up the side of dikes, that kind of stuff. But you're going to need into that 850 horsepower plus range of power to run something like that. We do make a 6-blade option in a lot of these too. We don't really make them that often. We've sold a few into Nebraska on some 1,000 horsepower builds with big pontoon style seating. And they have worked really well. They're not too much on performance. It's more of, hey, they're more on the flashy side of things, and they look very cool. They make tons of thrust as well. It's just the more blades that you put behind an engine, there is a drag coefficient there that's going to start to battle against you, especially on the water. So if you're trying to get something that's going to still push very well and have a decent amount of top end speed on the water, that's when you're going to start backing off of your blade count. If you're really focused on just dry push, you want to snatch a tree out of the ground or something like that, 6 blades will do the job. You just got to have the power. Finally, the JX series. The JX series is the last blade from a standpoint of gaining blade width. The JX is currently the widest blade option that we have in the product line. This model is about 14 inches wide. It's about a ½ inch wider than the JR series, but the big thing is it holds its blade width further out towards the blade tip. And really what we're trying to do there is we're trying to give the higher performance industry guys that are building the high performance engines an option of a 3-blade to give them the kind of performance that they're looking for out of their high-end boat. I will start off by saying that there was a reason that the JX was introduced into the market. The main purpose for the JX is when the 2:6:8 ratios became very hot in the market and the LS engine started to push the boundaries of 550 horse. There was many engine builders that were claiming 600, 620, and those guys had current R series blades on their boats. These were 3 and 4 seat family cruiser boats that weren't overbuilt. They could be driven as a higher performance boat with less people. A lot of guys would go out on the weekends on their own or with their buddy, and they would blister the water, have all kinds of fun, all that good stuff. The problem is that we started to see is that those boats that originally had 3-blade Rs on them, once they started to push that limit of 550 horse, the R kind of started to run out of steam. It started to fall off in the market because guys would get it, put it on that medium kind of high performance family style boat, and they noticed that it just didn't push as well as they hoped. It performed great and snappy in the water and was fun, but they just were hoping for something just a little bit more. And that's where the JX came in. It came in during that time period where guys were looking for something that was better than a 3-blade R, but they didn't want to go to a 4-blade R because the 4-blade took all the fun out of the boat. It took the snap out of the boat. It was really, really sluggish. It pushed like a tank, but in the water, it just kind of lost all of its speed. So the JX was introduced as that blend into a newer era of high performance LS, higher ratio, gear reductions, where you had a boat that you could take the family out on, but it was lean and mean. And if you wanted to get rowdy with it, you could definitely do that. There is a lot of speculation as to whether a 4-blade JR is better than a 3-blade JX. And it's not that one's better than the other. It's just they suit different performance styles of what a person is building around their boat. If you're that guy that wants to build a really high output LS, you really want it to be fun. You want to have some, you want to get out on the water and get the wind in your hair type thing, but you also want to be able to load the family in the boat and get them to the campsite and have a good weekend with the family. That JX is a really, really good option. Anything in that mid 650 horse range, we have put this thing on anything up to 1,000 horsepower. That's all based off of RPM and stuff. If you build an 800 horse engine that you can rev to 7,000 RPM, you can still put that same 3-blade JX on it. It will hold it. But it's geared more towards that style of family. We do make that prop a lot in a 4-blade option as well. Once you kind of put a blower on that LS and you're pushing 680 horse, mid 700s, even into the 800s, that's when you'll want to run a 4-blade in that JX, especially if you're trying to keep your RPM, say, under 6,000. A lot of guys are building 2.68 blower motors now that, are in the 800 plus horsepower range. And it is on a, bigger aluminum boat, poly bottom, 4 seats. They're looking for something that's going to push well, still be semi-responsive, and give them a good experience. And that's where your 4-blade JX comes in. That's, high-powered, keeping RPMs a little low. It's very rare that we'll do a 5-blade or a 6-blade JX. We've done a few, maybe on some guys that have turbocharged some big blocks with higher ratios. We tend to put those when you push a torque output over 1,000 foot-pounds of torque out of an engine. We start to look towards a 5-blade JX at that point. Last we're going to talk about on the J-Series product line is going to be our 88JW. This is what we consider the thrust king. It's kind of it's that option where if you're building something similar that you would use a JX on or a 4-blade JR, but you've got the option to build your guard big. You know, say you're a 16 to 18, 20-foot boat. You're going to have 650 horsepower. You're going to, maybe it's a Whippled motor or some kind of supercharged engine, and you're just going to be putting out a lot of torque. You want to run a semi-high ratio, like a 2.5 to 2.68. And you're looking for a prop that's just going to give you raw thrust output, that's going to really do well on the water, that's going to do everything. We try to tell people that in the airboat industry, diameter is king, especially when it comes to efficiency. Anytime you can make the blade longer and you can narrow it up, you just get better water efficiency out of it without sacrificing any low-end performance. And if anything, you'll gain low-end performance anyways. It's no different than why you will see a lot of tractors, a lot of mud trucks, whatnot, that will run skinnier, taller tires. When I talk to guys about airboats and how they perform, I make a lot of references to tires. I make a lot of references to how length is really similar to tire height and how blade width is very similar to tire width. So we do a lot of 3-blade options with these on anything from tour boats that are running mild 550 horse range with like 2 3/8 and they're wanting to keep their RPM, say, under 5,000. These are engines that are built specifically for torque. They will run this prop at, say, 84 inch or 86 inch in a 3-blade. This prop is available to be trimmed as well. We currently have options in a 4-blade with this that runs it all the way out to 92 inches, and we've done a few of those. Not in Florida, but Texas for sure. But there is a lot of our OEM market, Diamondback, Patriot, Nearbuilt, even Hammett, and some overseas places like in Alaska, where they are finding out that if they build that guard a little bit bigger and they put a beefy engine on there, this propeller is kind of it solves a lot of issues. It solves, hey, my boat pushes well, but it's not as good on the water. It burns more fuel. My cruise RPM is high. It cures that. If you got a boat that you're setting up to be big and you need to get a lot of weight moving, this is the best thing for it. And to be honest, it's mostly just the diameter. We've done a lot with the blade design as well. But length changes every aspect of how a boat operates. Some boats it can be great for, some it can't, but typically on your automotive boats, your bigger family, your hunt boats, that kind of stuff, you know, like I said, 650 beyond, you're going to do a 2.5, 2.68. This is your prop. A 3-blade option of this works really well into the mid 600 horse range. Once you start pushing that 680, 700, we do have people that are running more of this in a 4-blade just because they're looking to bring their RPMs down. A lot of those high output engines, especially in the small block area or the LS side of the business, those engines can make a lot of good power, but a lot of times you got to turn a lot of RPM to get the power out of those. And when you can put some kind of power adder on them, whether it's a blower or something like that, and you can get that engine into that sub 700 horse range to upper 800 horse range, a lot of guys want to do that, but they also then want to bring their RPMs into a much safer realm because they don't want to throw a rod out of this expensive motor. This prop allows you to do that. This allows you to build that motor that you could rev to 6,200, but you could put this propeller on it and make more thrust and have better cruise efficiency across the board at, say, an RPM closer to 5,600 instead of 6,000, which is where you would want to have to turn a shorter diameter prop. It's all about tip speed. There are some calculators on the internet, and we tend to target really, really good tip speed RPMs to kind of keep the airboating environments nice for people that are around lakes. That's some of what our target optimum ranges are in our manuals and our instructions. If you go to the website, you will find all this information as well. We do hand out our J-Series product line brochures that shows. This is also available on the website. It covers everything from blade specific models, designations of what they're doing to the actual product page. You can see this right on the website. As always, if you have any questions, you can reach out to me, or anyone here at in the office can help you, and we'll find the right prop for you. But this is Darren. We'll see you on the next one.